Tonight I want to ask you a question. Would you like to play a game? Have you heard of this game? Let's make a deal. How many of you actually still watch that? Anybody? Like on purpose? Okay. All right. Not like in the doctor's office or something like that. I'm talking like on purpose, still watch. Let's make a deal. Okay. Incidentally, I didn't know this. When you use something as a point in a sermon, you better know something about it. So I Googled it. It's been on since 1963. Not always had a successful run. It's been off and on, but it's been on since 1963. And currently, Wayne Brady, I believe, is the host for Let's Make a Deal. So I'm going to make a deal with you this morning. And let's assume that I do have the power to make this happen, all right? It's a big assumption, all right? It's going to be like Oprah tonight. Let's say you looked underneath your seat right now, and underneath the seat, taped to the seat, was $100,000, right? Everybody has $100,000, right? None of you are looking because you're not assuming I have the power to do this. But let's just say there's $100,000, right? You know, you have $100,000, you have $100,000. So that's $100,000, everybody has it. All right, let's just assume you have $100,000, right? So here's the deal. I will give you $100,000 if you would give me your car right now. Trade in your car. Like, throw your car keys up here, pink slips. I get your car, you get $100,000. How many of you would do that? Anybody do that? I would do that myself, right? Who wouldn't do that? Who wouldn't do that? So we would make that. That's a good deal. I don't know many people that would turn that offer down. Okay, but here's my second offer. Here's the next offer. And usually, the second offer is a bigger thing, but it might cost you more. There's some risk involved. Let's say for the next offer, you give me that $100,000. And I give you $1 million. Like everybody, $1 million. Everybody gets $1 million. But here's the catch. I guess you guys could trade in your parents' car if you wanted to. Okay. So the catch is you cannot use your vehicle for a week. No vehicle for a week. It's parked right where it is right now. You can't use it. But not only that, you can't use any other vehicle for a week. No other mode of motorized transportation other than a bike for a week. No Uber, no public transportation, just a bike. Some of you are like, I'm calling in sick for a week, right? Like, that's what I'm doing. But would you take that deal? Would you take it? Would you turn in the $100,000, take the $1 million, but for a week you cannot use your car? Some of you might still do that. I think I would still try and do that. That would be, because what's the deal? Like $100,000 or $1 million? There's like three more zeros on this side, right? That's a big change. So we'd see that. We'd want to do that. Many people would try and do that, right? We would go back to do that. We'd have to figure out how we're going to do our schedules. Getting kids to school on a bike would be interesting. There's all different things that we have to figure out what we're going to do in order to make this happen. But we would do it because it's $1 million. It's worth it, right? That's college funds, right? That's retirement. That's a lot of things that you can do with, it's Mission Sunday, right? Of course, it's Mission Sunday. There's so many things you can do with $1 million, right? So there's a lot of that out there. And we would try and make our best effort. And I know some of you are thinking right now, it's a trap, right? It's a trap. He's gonna drop the hammer in a second. But here's the deal. The first offer was exciting, right? $100,000. That's great for a 25-year-old car. That's great. I would turn that in. But it really paled in comparison to the second one. Even though the second one, you have a lot more effort in order to make the second one happen. It's way better than the first offer. But in order to get that second one, you have to turn down so much. There's so much work you have to be involved in making that happen. And so there's a lot of deals out there. Let's say in real life, let's say Satan offers you a deal, right? And here we go. He will give you immediate pleasures and rewards. in regards to the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, all that, like all that. You get all of that. And it requires almost no effort, right? Because that's usually, in order to not serve God, you just pretty much have to just not do what God says. That's almost, takes very little effort on that part. That's the deal that Satan offers. Here's the deal. Do this, easy, looking under the pew, and just pull it out, right? And you turn in a car, because what? You just turn around and buy another car with that $100,000, right? Of course, Uncle Sam gets his part because that's Uncle Sam. But other than that, you would turn around and just buy a car, and that's the easy. There's very little loss in that. It requires almost no self-discipline in order to take the deal that Satan offers, right? That's the deal that he offers. But let's say God offers you a deal. God offers a deal. And he said, he will give you future pleasures and rewards. An eternity of bliss, far exceeding the pleasures and rewards of this life. But it requires much effort now, much sacrifice on your part now. Riding a bike 20 miles to work now, but future reward. How many of us would take that? I think some of us are on that track right now, right? Some of us are on that track. That's what we're doing. We're looking forward to what God has promised, knowing that the things that we're avoiding now pale in comparison to the reward that is set before us. And that's the offer that God has on the table. And that's essentially, if you really break down our decisions and you break down the lives that we live every day, that's the deal. Deal or no deal, that's what we're going through, making decisions every day. And I recognize this is a very childish way of maybe looking at this, but it does help us see kind of what's at stake, right? Here's what God is offering. Incidentally, there was a study that was done with children and marshmallows. How many of you have ever seen children around a bag of marshmallows? Now, some children are not into sugar and sweets. There are some children, you can bribe them. They would turn on their mother for a marshmallow. There are some kids that were like that, right? That would turn in their own mom for a marshmallow. And there was a study that was done where they gave the kids, they said, all right, you can have, and I can't remember the numbers, but essentially you can have X amount of marshmallows now, or you can wait until after class, until after this, and you can have a bag of marshmallows. Guess which one they chose? They wanted it now, right? They wanted the marshmallows now. Now, that's obviously with children and their, very small life experiences they have at that point, and many times they have not had needed to wait on anything. They're just seeing what's right in front of them, and they're just seeing the marshmallows there right in front of them. And Satan does that with us. He dangles whatever marshmallow is in your life, right? He dangles that in front of you and says, you can have this now, right now. And God is saying, why don't you wait? And I'll give you something so much better. And so that's the offer that's on the table. God offers us a better deal than Satan would offer. But Satan makes it all shiny, right? He has a way, he's practiced, he's honed his craft. Initially, he was sowing doubt with Eve, and he continues to do that very same thing with Adam and Eve. He continues to do that same thing with us. And the question is, why do so many choose Satan's offer over God's? Why do so many choose that? Well, one, they fail to recognize the difference in value, to appreciate the difference in value. And it's hard to appreciate the value of something you haven't necessarily seen or touched. How many of you have ever bought something online that you have actually not touched? How many of you have done that? Some of you do it like every day, okay? So some of us do that. All right. How many would buy a car online that you have never kicked the tires on, you've never looked under the hood, you've never just, would you do that? Now, it's one thing if it's maybe new, a new car, but a used car online that you've never seen, you definitely want to smell a used car first, right? You don't want to. Do you know they have car dispensers now? You can buy them online, you drive up, and they just, it's like this giant car tower. You can just drive that car out before even seeing it. And that's a lot of what God is saying. God is saying, trust me. Look what I've done with people before. See my track record. Here's my resume in the Word of God. Here's my resume. Here's my promise. Will you trust me? Will you hold on? Don't take what's shiny now. Stay away from the marshmallows and trust me. We fail to appreciate sometimes the difference in value. And also there's this failure to appreciate the difference, and especially it's true in real life. The promise of Satan is only a lifetime, maybe, right? We get this for a lifetime. But what God is saying, what God is promising us will last for eternity. What happens with things here on earth? Do they wear out? Some of you have talked to me about how cars used to last longer. Partly because they were made out of real metal, like that was part of the issue. But things used to last longer than they do sometimes today, but things have a way of wearing out. That thing that was shiny before, once you start using it, it might not be as shiny once you have it. That marshmallow might not taste quite as sweet after you actually have it. And that's the thing with stuff, it wears out. Yet people literally sell their souls for stuff, for the deal that Satan offers, for this world. Partly because they know nothing else. And that's our job, right? Partly because they don't know there's another deal on the table. And that's what we've been given the gospel message to show. There's another deal on the table. Don't take what this used car salesman, Satan, is trying to give you. No offense if you're a used car salesman. My own grandfather's been a used car salesman, so I'll use that example. But classically, they're not always the most honest, right? So don't take what Satan's offering. Take what God is offering and what's on the table. We have to make sure that what they know. Moses understood the difference. When we read this passage, Moses understood the difference. He had a lot of shiny things in front of him, right? Hebrews chapter 11, as was read for us already, talks about this. What did he have in front of him? He had the king's wealth, and he had all the pleasures of life. He could have lived easily with the king and been fine and never hurt for anything. But he chose differently, right? In verse 24, by faith, Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. How many times do you think Moses, when he was dealing with those people in the desert, and they're whining about water again, and they're whining about food, and God's given them manna, God's given them quail, He's given them water, and they're whining again. How many times do you think Moses thought, I could be right now in a palace, right? I could be somewhere completely different and not dealing with you, right? But I chose to be here. So how many times do you think he maybe thought about that? Maybe once or twice. But how many times do you think he thought more of the future? I'm serving a living God. I'm serving a God who's promised me a future. I'm serving something much different. And so Moses saw the value. He understood the difference. His choice was to suffer affliction with the God's people rather than enjoy the pleasing passing pleasures of sin. He esteemed the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt. And it's hard for us to think that he thought that far in the future, but God was with him, and he thought about what was ahead of him instead of what was behind him. Instead of that thing that was dangling there in front of him, the treasures of Egypt and the pleasures to live there, he chose to move on and do what God asked him to do. By faith, he did this thing. His reason, for he looked forward to their reward. Is that any different for us today? It's not. We look forward to the reward. It's exactly what the Hebrew writer says concerning Christ, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Christ did the same thing, looking forward to being back with his Father, and he pushed through the sufferings he had to deal with. None of us have suffered to the degree that he has. None of us have gone through those kind of things. And God is saying, hold on, push through, be a stranger and a pilgrim here, and I'll give you a land, I'll give you a mansion, I'll give you a home far exceeding anything you could ever have here. God is saying push through. He has the better deal. We need to make sure we evaluate the deals, and that's what Moses did. He evaluated the options that were for him and made the right choice. Moses made that choice. And so the question tonight is, what deal have we made? What have we done? Are we accepting the deal made by Satan? Are we saying, hey, here's this deal, it's quick and easy, and you just get it right now. Right now, I get the reward. Or would we take the million and go the long run, go the distance with God? By faith, I am going to do this thing like Moses. By faith, I am going to be a pilgrim and a stranger in this land. And by faith, I'm not going to look at these things that are here, a quick return on investment. I'm not going to look on things here, but I'm going to keep my view, I'm going to keep my focus on heaven and the reward that's ahead of me instead of the marshmallows here. I'm going to keep my focus ahead. Make sure we have not accepted Satan's offer and lose our focus, which is easy to do. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to let our guard down and just wander off and get distracted by the things that are around us. I don't know if any of you have seen Disney's Aladdin movie. Not really fond of the new one, but liked the animated version, okay? I'm sure you don't care about my opinion on that. But anyway, so there is a moment where they're in a cave, the Cave of Wonders, right? And there is a monkey, Abu, who is in there. And what was his problem? They were supposed to be in there and not touch anything but the lamp, right? Touch only the lamp was the instruction that was given. But the monkey saw all these shiny things that were around him. And I feel sometimes that's what life is like. We see all these shiny things that are around us that are going to melt. And that's what they did in the story. They melted, spoiler alert. So they melted, right? They melted. They weren't real. They were just these flashy things to be distractions to the real prize that was ahead of us. And that's a lot of what life is like. These things that we have here on earth, they're going to melt with a fervent heat. They're a distraction to the real prize. And we need to make sure we are not being distracted by what's around us. So the real prize, this is not about guilt motivation. That's not what this is about. This is about making sure that we haven't lost perspective. This is about making sure that we aren't taking the easy deal. And this is about making sure that we're having a visual aid for just the folly of sin. The sin is around us. We recognize that it's there, but we don't have to choose that. That's not our end. That's not where we're going for. That's not what we are striving toward. So this night, I want you to make a deal. Let's make a deal. To esteem and reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures of this world, to choose to suffer affliction with the people of God, than just like Moses, and to keep looking forward to what God has promised us. That's what's on the table tonight, and that is what is going to promise us a greater reward in heaven. And tonight, if you haven't made that deal and you haven't put on Christ in baptism, tonight, if you have not made that choice to follow after Christ by faith, to follow Him, you can tonight put on Christ in baptism, be clothed in Christ, be a new man, a new creature in Christ through baptism. Tonight you can make that decision if you want the deal that God promises as we stand and as we sing.